Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I've got to make sure and time mark this video because I'm mentioning some things that haven't been announced yet, and I'm not supposed to announce it until after the announcement comes out. Anyway. But in the weeks ahead, DC is going to announce this all-in initiative, and part of it, this is kind of the conclusion behind absolute power, and we're gonna see how all that wraps up, and Amanda Waller's plan finally defeated, and everything else. And then DC will be launching a number of new comics, and there will be, and it's again video for another time. I can give kind of my feelings of it. For the sake of this conversation, it's something that can exist a little bit like the Ultimate Universe did. Something that DC's played with Elseworlds and everything else, but this is not a temporary story or not something done for kind of the gimmick of like, what if Superman was made out of cheese, but actually a real effort to do several years of storytelling. And alongside that, for the mainline DC universe, they're doing something that Marvel readers will find very familiar. And that's kind of a big brand, which is All In, and a jumping on point for readers. So basically, all the titles are going to be structured in such a way, they'll do some creative team shuffles and everything else, but it will be like, now, come in and jump into a title. And some of the creative teams I've heard sound really good. Some feels like a bit of a stretch. For example, the Tom King Wonder Woman will continue, and it will continue a little bit like Absolute Power kind of just didn't happen. That it was kind of interrupted in the middle for this, this other government bullshit. But now we're back to the same government bullshit. Anyway, it's all fine. It's funny because there's some people who are loving Tom King's run and some people who aren't. And the people who are loving it always get pissed off at me, and I talk about it kind of disparagingly. I'm not loving it, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I'm not doing videos like DC is trash, like any of that. To me, the story feels kind of played out. I don't feel like I'm reading anything original. But again, if you like it, cool. I think my issues with it have really been all around, the timing of his storyline with the Absolute Power storyline and just what feels like editorial silliness. But the All-In initiative is this jumping on point. And it's something that comics have had before. We need a jumping on point for new readers. And I want to challenge that for a minute. And I'm playing somewhat devil's advocate, but also from what I've seen in the shop. And I just want to present you with the question of, do jumping on points actually work? Like, do they matter as much to retailers and to consumers as they do to the comic publishers who use this as a marketing position? I mean, Marvel, when they did All New Marvel Now, and this was back when Rick Remender was put on Uncanny Avengers, and it was that was kind of one of the first major publisher jumping on points that they really promoted. It's like you can come into any title, and it's a great time to pick up something new. And the line that I think really kind of puts my mind at this is, if you've been hesitating to buy a title, now's the perfect chance to jump in. And that sentence, I will tell you, I understand why publishers like that sentence. The idea is like, hey, we've got a book here we've been publishing, and we want to get some new readers into it. So we're going to say, new readers, now's your chance. Come on in and give it a shot. And retailers are very hit and miss on these initiatives. Some like it. Others are like, I don't care. The general way that retailers will look at this is a new line-wide initiative or jumping on point. For retailers, isn't seen as jumping on, but it's a moment where they basically look at all the titles and they look at the creative teams. They look a little bit more closely in their ordering, and they're like, okay, normally I get 5 copies of The Flash, but we have a new creative team. It's not a new number one, but there's going to be a little bit more advertising on it. And I think I'll order 10 copies instead of 5 copies for the shelf. That's how people view it. That's how retailers, and I've mentioned this to comic creators and professionals before, and they're like, no, retailers get excited because they know they're going to sell more copies. And it's like, no, retailers look at jumping on points as, now's a chance for me to, kind of re-examine my order numbers and sometimes bring them up, sometimes bring them down. I mean, that's the part that people often, don't mention in all these things, is jumping on points can also be jumping off points for retailers and for, consumers alike. If you have a popular creative team or something that's working and you announce an all new, all different team, it's a time where people are like, yeah, I think I'm going to go back on that. Case in point, The Rick Remender run of Uncanny X-Force was very popular, and retailers ordered big on it because it sold very big. It didn't have it had some great artists and had some average artists on there. I generally like the art creative team, but definitely some sold better than others. Jerome Opina, always sold really really well. Others, especially how the title wrapped up, um, didn't do as well. Let's just say in terms of selling things on the shelf, but retailers are high on Uncanny X-Force. And when they rebooted X-Force, or rather when they split it into two books, there was the kind of Cable and Team X-Force, and then there was a Psylocke and Team X-Force. Anyway, when they did this, retailers ordered less because the new creative teams just were not at the same level of the Remender run, and so it became a jumping off point. Retailers saw it that way. But generally speaking, I think very few retailers get excited about this of like, I'm going to push the full line. And that's why often there's incentive programs, and I've heard DC will have one as well. That I don't have enough of the details yet to kind of mouth off about it. But they're hit and miss. You have to really convince somebody that, hey, this is going to be something that's going to drive more dollars into your store. From a customer standpoint, and this is where I'd just love to kind of test this theory with you. Here's what I would observe in the shop is you could tell customers it's a jumping on point, but you're kind of speaking to the wrong audience, or the expression is you're knocking on an open door, because people who are coming into the direct market, they already know that there's a comic shop. They already have a special visit out of their day to go into this shop. It's not they're not like going into a grocery store, going into a gas station, or Walmart. They're going out of their way to a special comic store. And in that comic store, there are new issues, and almost always, 9 times out of 10, there are the previous issues behind the new issues. Once upon a time, by the way, if you go back to the 80s and late 90s, a lot of comic shops would only have that month's new issue on the shelf, and then the previous issue was put in the back issue bin. And there was that shuffling of comics. And then somewhere along the line, a lot of comic shops just started, stacking them up because they were, in theory, running out of long box space in their shop. But basically, so you have the newest issue in the front, and then behind it, the previous issue, and then sometimes the issue before that. And it would go back for a couple months until the retailer finds like, all right, the stack's getting too big, and I got to move it to a box. And so the idea that I have to come in and I have to jump into a comic, now's a chance to try it. A lot of consumers, a lot of customers, they don't view it that way. They will look at the comic and they'll go, in fact, in a lot of cases, customers will let a couple issues go by and then decide to dip in because they're waiting to see if the creative team will hold, especially lately. Because Marvel's done a lot of that bait and switch where it's like, here's your new creative team. And look at this superstar artist we got for 3 issues. But we're not going to tell you that. We're just going to kind of pretend it's a new ongoing series artist. In fact, maybe we're going to say it's a new ongoing series artist, but in all reality, it's not. And this has been kind of the game for a while now. So a lot of customers will wait until issue 2 or 3 of a run, and then they'll buy it because they feel very, very confident that they can get those other issues at cover price. Because 9 times out of 10, or even 99 times out of 100, they can. If the issue is super, super hot and it sells out, then the customer will reserve. But that's less of a jumping on point. It's more of a gamble that, this comic is going to do really well and sell out, so I need to get it. But the idea that this, like, hey, here's a perfect jumping on point, customers will jump on and off all the time. And generally, I think more negative than positive, customers will look at this and go, hey, I was liking this run, or, I was in the middle of a story and now suddenly you're telling me it's going to, we're going to pause, or we're going to start a new arc, or we're going to do a bunch of bullshit in the comic to make it feel like, accessible for new readers. But coming into the comic store all the time, every title is accessible to me. I don't view comics that way. I don't come in and think, I can't possibly start reading it now. There's like, it's 3 issues into the run. I'm going to have to wait until there's a pause. It's like a giant merry-go-round. It's spinning so incredibly fast. I got to wait for that thing to slow down before I hop on. That's not how comics works. That's not how the business is operated. And I can only tell you from like 20 plus years of experience, it's just not how people buy things. They don't think that way. They will buy when they feel like it. They'll say, "Oh, I'm liking this. I think I'll buy the previous 2 issues." And you can always tell because the customer will come up and they'll have like 3 issues, like the previous 3 issues just in her hand. They're like, I decided to jump into this run. I was standing at the shelf and I was kind of thumbing through the recent issue and it looked pretty good. So, I'm buying all 3. And tons of sales happen that way. That's more than anything. So to me, I'm not saying, hey, this is a bad idea. I'm not criticizing what DC is doing, but I am saying that the weighting or the emphasis on jumping on point just may not be that relevant. I don't know if jumping on point is a big mover of behavior like the comic publishers seem to think it is. And again, the retailers are kind of neither here nor there on a lot of it. And the fans are like, does this storyline interest me? Is a creative team good? You can launch that thing anytime you want. Now, there is one other factor here, and it's the boring logistical one. And that's, from a publisher's perspective, if they're thinking about marketing dollars and advertisements and spend, then it is easier for them to group things by going like, hey, this November, every title is going to have something brand new in it. Check them all out. And it's easier than like running 20 ads of like, in Wonder Woman, you got this shit going on. And in Green Lantern, you got this going on. And so it's more convenient for the publisher for sure to advertise in this kind of, here's everything and everything is starting fresh and now's a chance. It is an easier message, and I acknowledge that. But I just don't think that I don't think it moves the needle for customers. Certainly not as much as I think publishers have historically thought it did. But now my question is for you. You're a customer, right? Are you moved by, jumping on points? Does that mean anything? I mean, again, not to be negative about it, but to me, when companies often announce jumping on points, the impact I usually see is that it's a jumping off point, that more than anything, it's customers who are like, yeah, I'm ready to go ahead and save some money and stop this run. I usually see a reduction, not an increase in buying behavior. I mean, you'll see speculators come in and buy the first issue, a lot of these jumping on points, but you could tell those aren't long-term customers. These are people who are buying the first issue of the initiative because for whatever reason they believe that that's going to be valuable. And so that's why you see the sales spike the way they do. But anyway, my opinion. So what's yours? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.